You are working harder than your parents ever did. You are earning more than you ever have before. And yet at the end of every single month, you find yourself in exactly the same place, staring at your bank account, wondering where it all went, wondering why no matter how much comes in, it never seems to be enough. You are not lazy. You are not stupid. You are not unlucky. But something is wrong. Something quiet, invisible, and relentless is draining your financial life. And today you are going to find out exactly what it is. Because being broke in America is not an accident. It is a system. And you were born into it. Let us start with the number that should shake you to your core. Nearly 60% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. Not just low-income Americans, not just people without college degrees, people earning six figures, people with professional careers and nice cars and homes in good neighborhoods, living one missed paycheck away from financial crisis. The emergency fund that every financial advisor recommends, 3 to 6 months of expenses, is completely non-existent for the majority of American households. This is not a personal failure. This is a national condition. And understanding why it exists, understanding the forces that created it and the forces that sustain it, is the first step toward breaking free from it. The story of why you are always broke begins long before you were born. It begins with a shift in the American economy that happened quietly, gradually, and with devastating consequences for ordinary working people. For most of the 20th century, wages and productivity moved together. When workers produced more, they earned more. The deal between labor and capital was imperfect, but it was real, and it created the largest, most prosperous middle class in human history. Then somewhere around the late 1970s and early 1980s, the deal broke. Productivity kept rising. American workers kept getting more efficient, more educated, more productive, but wages stopped keeping pace. The gains from that increased productivity flowed increasingly to shareholders, to executives, to the owners of capital. And ordinary workers were left with stagnant paychecks and the quiet, growing sense that no matter how hard they worked, they were falling behind. This is not a political opinion. It is a documented economic reality. Adjusted for inflation, the median American wage has barely moved in 40 years, while the cost of housing, healthcare, education, and childcare, the foundational expenses of a stable middle-class life, has exploded. The math of American life has been quietly, systematically broken, and the result is a generation of hardworking people who cannot figure out why they always feel financially suffocated. But the structural problem is only part of the story, because there is another layer, a more intimate layer, a layer that lives not in economic policy but in the daily choices and habits and invisible beliefs that govern how money flows through your life. And this layer is where most people have the most power to create change. Let us talk about lifestyle inflation, because this silent force may be personally responsible for more financial stagnation than any economic policy ever written. Lifestyle inflation is what happens when your income rises and your spending rises to match it, sometimes faster. You get a raise, you get a better job, you start earning more money. And almost automatically, almost unconsciously, your life expands to absorb it. The apartment becomes a house. The used car becomes a new one. The occasional dinner out becomes a regular habit. The cheap gym membership becomes a boutique fitness studio. The basic phone becomes the newest model. None of these individual decisions is catastrophic. Each one feels reasonable, even deserved. You worked for this. You earned it. Why shouldn't you enjoy it? But here is the devastating math of lifestyle inflation. If every dollar of increased income immediately becomes a dollar of increased spending, you never build wealth. You just build a more expensive version of being broke. Your income goes up, but your financial security stays exactly the same. Because security does not come from earning more. It comes from the gap between what you earn and what you spend, and if that gap never widens, if lifestyle always expands to fill the available income, you will be financially fragile at $30,000 a year and financially fragile at $300,000 a year. The research backs this up with uncomfortable precision. Studies have found people earning over $200,000 a year who have less than $1,000 in savings, who carry significant credit card debt, who have no meaningful retirement accounts, living in beautiful homes, driving expensive cars, taking luxury vacations, and one layoff away from losing everything, because the lifestyle had been inflated to consume every dollar available, and then some. And this connects directly to the next force draining your financial life: the debt trap. Specifically, the consumer debt trap that has been carefully, deliberately engineered by some of the most sophisticated companies in human history. The credit card industry did not grow into a trillion-dollar business by accident. It grew because it found a way to monetize a fundamental feature of human psychology: the disconnection between pleasure and pain. When you swipe a credit card, you feel the pleasure of acquisition immediately. The pain of payment comes later. In a bill, abstract, distant, separated from the moment of purchase by just enough time and psychological distance that the brain does not properly account for it. The average American household carries over $9,000 in credit card debt, at an average interest rate of somewhere between 20 and 25%. This means that for millions of Americans, a significant portion of every paycheck is not building their life. It is servicing the cost of purchases they made months or years ago. They are paying today for yesterday's spending, which means they have less money to build tomorrow, and the credit card companies designed it exactly this way. The minimum payment structure is not a courtesy. It is a trap. Pay the minimum on a $5,000 balance at 20% interest, and it will take you years to pay off. And you will pay thousands of dollars in interest on top of the original purchase. The companies know this. They model it. They engineer products around it, because a customer who pays their balance in full every month is almost worthless to them. The profit lives in the revolving balance, in the customer who is always slightly behind, always paying interest, always, in the most precise financial sense, broke. Now, let us go deeper into something that almost no one talks about honestly: the true cost of looking like you have money in America. Because in this culture, in this specific, relentless, image-saturated American culture, there is enormous social pressure to perform prosperity, to look successful even when the finances behind the appearance are a disaster. The car payment is the most ubiquitous example of this phenomenon. The average new car payment in America is now well over $500 per month. For many buyers, it is closer to $700 or $800. That is money leaving your household every single month, not building equity in an appreciating asset the way a mortgage does, but paying for a machine that begins losing value the moment you drive it off the lot. A machine that will be worth a fraction of its purchase price by the time it is paid off, but the car is visible. The car signals something. It communicates a story about who you are and how well you are doing. And in a culture where success is constantly performed and constantly evaluated, the temptation to spend money on visible status symbols, cars, clothes, handbags, watches, vacations photographed for social media, is not vanity. It is a response to genuine social pressure, to the very human desire to belong, to be respected, to not be seen as struggling. The tragedy is that the performance of wealth and the building of wealth are not just different. They are often directly opposed. Every dollar spent maintaining the appearance of prosperity is a dollar not compounding quietly in an investment account. The people who look the richest are frequently not the richest, and the people quietly building real wealth are often the ones who look the most ordinary. Thomas Stanley spent decades studying American millionaires, and what he found shattered almost every popular assumption about wealth. The majority of American millionaires do not live in the biggest houses. They do not drive the newest cars. They do not wear the most expensive clothes. They live in modest neighborhoods, drive used vehicles, and spend their money in ways that are almost invisible to the outside world. Because they understood early and deeply that the goal is not to look wealthy. The goal is to be wealthy. And those two things require almost opposite behaviors. Now let us talk about something even more uncomfortable. Something that sits at the intersection of psychology, culture, and personal history. The beliefs about money that were downloaded into your brain before you were old enough to question them. Thus, every family has a money culture, a set of unspoken beliefs, behaviors, and emotional patterns around finances that get passed from generation to generation. Not through formal instruction, but through observation, through the conversations children overhear, through the anxiety they sense when bills arrive, through the phrases repeated so often they become operating instructions for life. Money doesn't grow on trees, like we can't afford that. Rich people are greedy. It's selfish to want more, and money is the root of all evil. These phrases sound harmless. They sound like practical wisdom, but embedded within them are beliefs that, if internalized deeply enough, will silently sabotage every financial effort you ever make. If you believe at some level that wanting money is selfish or greedy, your subconscious will find ways to get rid of it, to spend it, to give it away, to make decisions that ensure you never accumulate too much of something you secretly believe is corrupting. This is not a conscious process. It operates below awareness, in the automatic, habitual, emotionally driven decisions that make up the vast majority of your financial behavior. Research in behavioral psychology consistently shows that people's financial outcomes correlate strongly with their childhood money environment. Not perfectly. People rise from poverty and people fall from privilege. But the correlation is real. The money scripts written in childhood are powerful, and they run largely on autopilot until someone makes the deliberate, often painful choice to examine them. Here's a question worth sitting with. What did you learn about money before the age of 12? Not what were you taught formally, but what did you absorb? What did you feel? What was money in your house? Was it scarce and stressful? Was it never discussed? Was it the source of conflict? Was it something other families had and yours did not? Those early experiences are not neutral. They are formative, and they are running in the background of every financial decision you make today. And then there is the education system, or rather the stunning, inexcusable absence of financial education in the American school system. The average American student spends 13 years in public school and emerges with almost no practical knowledge of how money works, how compound interest functions, what a credit score is and how it affects the cost of borrowing, how taxes work, what investing means, what inflation is and why it matters. These are not advanced concepts. They are the foundational literacy of adult financial life, and they are almost entirely absent from the curriculum. Instead, young Americans are handed credit card applications the moment they turn 18, sent to colleges whose costs have inflated 400% faster than general prices over the past several decades, and launched into an economy that requires sophisticated financial navigation with almost no tools to navigate it. The ignorance is not accidental. An financially illiterate consumer is a profitable consumer. Someone who does not understand compound interest will carry credit card debt. Someone who does not understand fee structures will pay unnecessary investment costs. Someone who does not understand how insurance works will buy products they do not need. The financial industry profits enormously from the gap between what ordinary Americans know about money and what they need to know. And that gap has never been adequately closed by the institutions responsible for closing it. But here's where the story turns. Because understanding why you are broke is not an exercise in despair, it is an exercise in clarity. And clarity is the beginning of change. The structural forces are real. The wage stagnation is real. The predatory design of consumer debt is real. The absence of financial education is real. You did not create these conditions, but you are living inside them. And living inside a system does not mean you are powerless within it. The path out of being always broke is not complicated. It is not easy, but it is not complicated. It begins with one decision that cuts against everything the consumer economy is designed to make you do. Spend less than you earn. Not occasionally, not when it is convenient. Structurally, automatically. Before lifestyle can inflate to absorb the surplus, automate savings before you ever see the money. Pay yourself first, not what is left over at the end of the month. Because what is left over at the end of the month is almost always nothing. But what is automatically redirected before you can spend it? That accumulates, that compounds, that builds. Then attack the debt. Not the minimum payment, the debt itself. Because every dollar of high-interest consumer debt you carry is a permanent drain on your financial oxygen. It is a monthly tax on past decisions that consumes resources that could be building your future. Then begin to build the gap. The gap between income and spending. That gap is the seed of every financial transformation. It does not have to be enormous at first. It just has to exist. And it has to grow. Slowly, deliberately protected from the lifestyle inflation that will try to close it at every opportunity. These steps are not revolutionary. They are not secret. They are, in fact, obvious. And yet the majority of Americans never fully implement them. Not because they are lazy or foolish, but because the entire architecture of modern American consumer life is designed to prevent it. Every advertisement, every one-click purchase, every buy now, pay later offer, every social media image of someone living a life you desire is pulling in exactly the opposite direction. Being broke in America is not your fault. But staying broke, once you understand the forces keeping you there, that becomes a choice. A quiet, daily, invisible choice made in 1,000 small moments, where the forces of the system push one way, and your own clarity and discipline push the other. The people who win this fight are not the ones with the highest incomes. They are the ones who saw the system clearly, decided they were done playing by its rules, and built something different. Quietly, patiently, one decision at a time. That is the whole story. And now you know it.